Good morning, guys. Um, what I would like to do today, and actually it will be a running series, is I have had a lot of requests asking from my subscribers, asking questions about CNC and how to use them and stuff like that. Well, what I thought about doing is creating a running series on solely CNC operations and what how to use them, how to set them up, how to program them, what they are, and things like that. Um, I set a running series because CNC operations is and can be a very in-depth subject. It's not something that we're going to cover in one video. So what I'll probably do, much like this one, which is just an introduction to what's to come, um, I will start out with one that explains the CNC, which I'll probably do a little bit of that now. But the next one will be one step farther as far as how to use the software and the post processor and CAD CAM software, stuff like that. And then the next one, of course, would be how to set up the CNC machines, the differences between CNC mill and CNC lathe, which I will probably cover that in this video just to give a good fluid introduction as to what is to come. Now, if you, on this video, if you have specific things that you'd like to see in the aspect of CNC operations in the Q world, put it in the comments and I'll see what I can do and try to explain it for you. But this is going to be pretty in-depth, time-consuming, and be done in stages. I'll have version one, version two, or part one, part two, part three, part 50, things like that. But basically, the CNC machine, whether it be a CNC mill or a CNC lathe, aids in the Q construction process by making it a pretty much hands-off situation. Now, how does this help? Well, one, it adds precision to your work. Now, many people still continue to use, and always will use manual machines, and that's fine. But when you're in a situation to where precision, absolute precision, is something that you have to have from one cue to another, then you really need to look into the CNC world and begin using one of those. Yes, there's a learning curve. It can be big, it can be small. But hopefully, with my help, we can reduce the size of that learning curve. I have always said that if you have basic computer knowledge, if you know how to load a file, save a file, send an email, then you can learn CNC. And of course, depending on how much computer knowledge you have, will determine how quickly you progress in the CNC world. Now, with that being said, what is CNC? Well, CNC stands for Computer Numerical Control, and it gives you the ability to take a program that you've written or that you've downloaded and implement it into your Q build in a repetitious manner. It's hands off, and it doesn't get any more precise than CNC. Some people argue, oh, it's just a CNC machine, you're not really building Qs. Well, you are. And in actuality, you're building them to a higher standard because it is repetitious. You have the ability to do the same thing exactly the same way, time and time again. Take shafts, for example. if I design a taper profile for a shaft, and then I go to my manual lathe and I try to duplicate that time and time and time again, even with a taper bar, you're going to have variances. With the CNC setup, whether it be a mill or a lathe, you have the ability to write your program, design your profile, and have the ability to do that over and over again. Once you create the file and you've tested the file and you say, yep, this is a good system, this is the way I want this shaft to be, then at that point you can take that file that you've created, you can save it, and you can start loading stock into your mill or your lathe and utilizing the program that you just created, and it will do it exactly the same every time. You only have to create it once. That's the glory of it. Whether it be a taper profile for a shaft or an inlay or a CNC point or a taper, you only have to create the files one time. Once you've created the files, they're there, they're always there, and you can grab them in an instant and perform the task that you need to perform. Now, I truly feel that the implementation of CNC in the Q world is a step above. It's, while very technical, it doesn't have to be something that is intimidating. Again, yeah, there's a learning curve, but I do feel that with proper guidance, it can be very easily obtained as far as knowledge and how to. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Yes, you're going to break in mills, and you're going to have misalignments and missetups and your typical turmoil. But in the long run, you'll find that it becomes easier and easier to use. The hard parts, there's a couple hard parts, but the hard part with a CNC machine is learning how to create the files themselves. And then the other aspect is how to take it from file creation to having the CNC machine be able to read that file, convert it into something that it can use in a way that it'll do what you want. And then, of course, you have the setup. And what I mean by setup is zeroing out the machine and loading your parts and finding your zero starting point or your home starting point. But again, these things may sound kind of out there, above your head, but it's really not. A little bit of common sense, a little bit of computer knowledge, just the basic computer knowledge, and it can take you a long ways. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and explain the CNC mill first, and then we'll get into the CNC lathe, because there's two major differences. Now, some of this stuff isn't going to make sense to you, but it will in time. A CNC mill typically has 3 axes. Okay, you have an X, a Y, and a Z. And in the Q world, you have to have what's called a 4th axis, or your A axis, and that's the one that rotates. So you load your Q, let me back up, make it a little more understandable. Your 4th axis is basically your headstock on your lathe, but on the CNC machine. So once you load your Q, that 4th axis allows the Q to rotate, and it holds it in position. So you have the 4th axis, that's what holds your Q, and then you have the Z axis, that is your up and down motion, and then you have your X axis that is going across the Q back and forth, and then you have your Y axis, and that is running the length of the Q up and down. So with those four motions, X, Y, Z, and A, you can replicate any motion that you would normally do by hand on a manual machine. Some things that you need to consider is what type of CNC machine are you going to use? Your first CNC machine should be something that is, not El Cheapo, but then again, it shouldn't cost you $100,000 either. Your first one needs to be a CNC machine mill that can expand with you as you learn. As far as investment costs, I would say try to keep it in the range of about $3,000 to $5,000. Now, there are dedicated machines out there for Cuemakers in the CNC world. I produce one of them. It's called a Q Demon. I designed the Q Demon CNC mill specifically for Cuemakers because of the footprint. Okay, when I initially designed it, I did so because the footprint of most CNC machines are going to be too big for most shops, your average shop, unless you're working in a we're not working in a 5,000 square foot facility. So most people that are getting into Q making, and even some that have been in it for years, still have limited space. So my goal was to create a machine, design a machine that would fit on most any bench top. So the footprint of my machine is 20 inches wide, 45 inches long, and 16 inches tall. With those dimensions, it can fit on just about any workbench that's at least 24 inches deep. There are other CNC machines out there. Don't have to buy mine. You can go with Unique Products, Jim Sickles. They make a good machine. It's going to cost you a little bit. Their Q Monster, you're probably going to get out the door for about $8,000-9,000, maybe $6,000, and up. If you had like a Haas or something like that, now you're talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. You don't need that. It's too much. It isn't required, and it's not essential to build Qs with. And that was kind of the reason that I designed the Q Demon CNC machine, because I wanted to create a CNC machine that was easy to learn, easy to set up, and designed specifically for Cuemakers. And I think I've achieved that at a very good price point. You can walk out the door with my machine for right at $3,500. I mean, I don't think you can find a better price point with that. But along with my machine, you do get customer support, full support from the time that you purchase the machine until you're hypothetically ready to kick out the nest. I'm on the phone with you. I'm showing you how to do things or telling you how to do things via video call, just phone call, whatever way we need to. But that's one of the perks for getting one of my machines, is that I'm always going to be there for you. Now, is my machine the one you need to go with? Well, maybe not. I'm not trying to sell one of them. I do make them for sale, but this is not a sales commercial. This is an introduction to CNC. I just wanted to let you know that I do produce one, I do offer one at a reasonable price. Now, the first thing that we're going to do, and this will be in the next video, again, this is just an introduction to what's coming. The next video will be explaining your XYZ and A axis, how it works, and we'll get into a little bit of setup, and I will show you a photo of the CNC that we'll be working on. I'll probably show you the CNC in real time, actually, but there's a lot to learn. But if you stick with it and stick with us at Cuemakers Guild, we will do our best to walk you through it. Take your time, watch these following videos multiple times, ask plenty of questions, and we will reply. One of us will. And I think that together, and by doing it in this manner, it will shave your learning curve greatly. And don't be afraid of it. Everybody tells me that, oh, it's a CNC machine and it's intimidating and it's scary, and I've never used one before, and I just don't know. And that in itself has been the #1 reason people don't go to CNC. You know, I was kind of the same way, but then again, I have a machining background, so it's a little bit different for me. But in all honesty, for precise inlays and precision, repeatable tapers and accurate shaft reproduction, that's where you need to be. It really is. It is the next level. And if you're ready to take your game to that level, stick with me and follow up on the next video, and we'll begin. If you have not subscribed to the channel and you find that our information is helpful, please take the time to subscribe. Yes, you can do donations and stuff like that, but that's not required. We are not charging you a bit, not one dime, for the information that we provide. We're doing it because it is a passion of ours, and we want to spread the knowledge. That's the main reason for this channel. And also, now maybe not in the CNC world, I might be a loner in this one. I don't know if I'll have anybody else contribute or not, but the Cuemakers Guild was designed by me with the idea of having multiple people provide basically the same information, but showing different ways of doing it. So basically different ways of doing the same task. And the idea behind that is to basically show that you can do things different ways, and at the end of the day, have the same result. Whether it be manual milling or CNC operations or just simply different techniques, you know, you can still end up with the same result at the end of the day. Some take longer than others. Some make more sense than others. But hopefully between Ed and I and one more person that we're getting ready to onboard, we will together be able to provide you with very useful information. But other than that, I think that about wraps up the introduction. Well, let me take that back. Once I cover the CNC mill, then I'll start implementing videos on the CNC lathe, and they're two separate animals. Okay, the CNC mill, as I mentioned earlier, you have your XYZ and 4th axis or A axis. On a CNC lathe, you only have 2 axes. You have your X and your Z, and that's it. You don't have any up and down. So you have your X, which on a CNC lathe, your X is your forward and backwards, or across the cue. Whereas on a CNC mill, your X is the very same, across the cue. On a CNC lathe, your what normally would be the Y-axis on a CNC mill going along the cue up and down, on a CNC lathe, it is your Z-axis. And this is just the common setup. You can change these things if you want, but this is the common setup. This is what's typical. And normally on a CNC mill, the Z-axis, as I mentioned earlier, goes up, it raises your spindle up and down. But on the CNC lathe, your Z-axis is really your Y-axis. It goes across along the cue. So there's two very significant differences between a CNC mill and a CNC lathe. Now you would think that given the fact that it only has two axes, the CNC lathe, that it would be easier to program and use. Well, that's not always the case. In most cases, a CNC mill is easier to program than a CNC lathe. But we will get into that going down the road in future videos. And I foresee, in all honesty, I do foresee a lot of CNC related videos coming up. Now, if this is something that you want to continue to see, and if you haven't subscribed, but you're interested in it, please subscribe, because and click on notifications so you'll get notified. This will be, and it will be time consuming, so it won't be done all in 1 week. It will be time consuming, and I will put them out as I can, as I have time. But I will take you to the best of my ability. I'll take you from step one to final product in the CNC world. Thank you for watching the video, and please share, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.